From the outside, T.I and Tiny always looked like the definition of a hip-hop power couple. Two people who built an empire together, raised a beautiful family, and invited the world to watch them hustle side by side. But as we've seen time and time again in celebrity relationships, what glitters on the surface doesn't always reflect the reality that unfolds behind closed doors. And lately, the cracks that once hid beneath their glamorous image have started to burst into public view, with Tiny allegedly voicing feelings of deep emotional neglect and disappointment during the final stages of her divorce from the man she once called her king. Their story begins in the early 2000s, when Tamika, Tiny, Caudle, already famous from the multi-platinum R&B group Escape, met Clifford, T.I, Harris, a rising rapper from Atlanta with swagger, charm, and undeniable ambition. From the start, they were opposites that somehow clicked. Tiny, soft-spoken but sharp-minded, T.I, confident, outspoken, and driven by the streets. Together, they built a blended family that became one of the most recognizable in hip-hop. Fans watched them evolve from a young couple in love to married parents balancing fame, music, and family life. For years, they gave us the image of stability. Their reality show, T.I and Tiny, The Family Hustle, made audiences believe they had cracked the code on maintaining love amid celebrity chaos. But even as the cameras captured laughter, vacations, and business deals, whispers of turmoil never really disappeared. Viewers noticed subtle tensions, the way Tiny's patience seemed to stretch thin, or the moments where T.I.'s controlling tendencies peeked through. Still, the couple presented a united front, branding themselves as a partnership built on loyalty and hustle. Behind the scenes, though, the balance of power appeared to tilt heavily in T.I.'s favor. His alpha male persona, the same energy that fueled his career, sometimes clashed with Tiny's quiet strength. Over the years, public controversies, rumors of infidelity, and uncomfortable interviews hinted that emotional distance was creeping in. Tiny, who had sacrificed much of her own career momentum to focus on family, seemed increasingly overshadowed by her husband's ambitions. Friends and fans alike noticed that her sparkle dimmed as she faded into the background of T.I.'s spotlight. When Tiny filed for divorce the first time in 2016, the hip-hop world gasped. After years of standing by him through legal struggles and public scrutiny, it looked like she had finally reached her breaking point. Reports circulated that she was tired of feeling unappreciated, that her emotional needs were not being met. Yet, like many long-term couples, they couldn't stay apart for long. T.I made grand gestures, Tiny softened her stance, and before anyone knew it, they were back together, telling fans they were stronger than ever. The reconciliation gave people hope, but it also planted a question. How long can love survive when emotional connection is constantly tested? Fast forward a few years, and the same issues seemed to resurface. By now, Tiny had grown more confident in her own independence. Her return to the stage with Escape reminded everyone that she was a star in her own right. Meanwhile, T.I continued to expand his brand into acting, business, and activism. Yet success did little to heal the wounds of emotional disconnection. Observers noticed how often Tiny appeared alone at events, or how her interviews carried a quiet sadness. The gossip blogs started buzzing again, not just about infidelity rumors, but about an emotional rift that seemed impossible to ignore. When reports emerged that Tiny had filed for divorce again, the tone of the story changed. This time, it wasn't just about cheating or pride, it was about emotional exhaustion. Sources close to the couple suggested that Tiny felt unseen, that she had spent years pouring into a relationship that no longer poured back into her. And while both she and T.I have always maintained public respect for one another, fans couldn't help but read between the lines. It seemed like the woman who once built her world around her husband was finally choosing herself. Tiny's alleged comments about feeling unsatisfied emotionally and as a woman struck a nerve across social media. Whether those words came directly from legal filings or were paraphrased through insiders, they resonated deeply with women who understood what it means to love someone who doesn't meet you halfway. Online discussions exploded. Some sympathized with Tiny, saying that years of emotional neglect could break even the strongest woman. Others defended T.I, arguing that fame and constant public scrutiny make intimacy hard to maintain. Either way, the conversation revealed just how invested people were in their story. For many fans, this moment felt like a painful but inevitable conclusion. Throughout their marriage, Tiny had often been portrayed as the peacemaker, the woman who stood by her man through everything. But even peacemakers reach their limit. The emotional labor of constantly being the understanding partner can drain anyone's spirit. If the reports are true, Tiny was no longer willing to shrink herself to preserve an image. She wanted emotional reciprocity, respect, and partnership, things money or fame can't buy. T.I, for his part, has always been vocal about his vision of relationships. In various interviews, he's spoken about traditional gender roles and the idea of a man being the head of the household. While some admired his old-school views, others criticized them as outdated and controlling. Tiny, who grew up in a different era of R&B sisterhood and female empowerment, seemed increasingly uncomfortable with that dynamic. Over time, it appeared their love evolved into something more like a negotiation than a true partnership. As the divorce story unfolded, T.I reportedly expressed frustration about how their private issues had become public again. Friends close to him said he still loved Tiny but felt misunderstood, that his efforts were never enough. But from Tiny's perspective, grand gestures couldn't replace consistent emotional presence. For her, being satisfied as a woman wasn't just about romance or intimacy. It was about being seen, heard, and valued beyond the role of wife and mother. And that, according to insiders, is what had been missing for years. Social media lit up with opinions. Some fans dragged T.I, accusing him of taking Tiny for granted after she sacrificed so much for his career. Others urged compassion, noting that both of them had endured immense pressure as public figures. Regardless of where people stood, the public breakup felt symbolic, like the closing chapter of a long, complicated saga that mirrored the struggles many couples face behind the glamour. Through it all, Tiny maintained an aura of quiet dignity. While she didn't spill explicit details, her body language, social media posts, and selective interviews suggested a woman reclaiming her power. Her friends reportedly described her as calm, reflective, and focused on healing. Instead of engaging in a media war, Tiny seemed to let her silence speak volumes. That silence, ironically, said more than any interview could. It hinted at heartbreak, but also at liberation, the kind that comes when a woman finally stops fighting for something that drains her spirit. T.I, meanwhile, continued to appear in public, often smiling, but noticeably more subdued. Observers noticed that his usual bravado seemed dimmed, as if he knew this time the damage was irreversible. Despite his flaws, few doubt that T.I truly loved Tiny in his own way. But love without emotional awareness can still fail. And that may be the greatest tragedy of their story. The couple's journey raises bigger questions about what it means to be satisfied in a relationship. Emotional satisfaction isn't about luxury, status, or social media perfection. It's about vulnerability and connection. Tiny's decision to walk away, if that's truly the final decision, reflects a growing trend among women in long-term relationships who are no longer willing to accept emotional crumbs in exchange for stability. For years, society told women to endure, to hold the family together no matter what. But Tiny's story reminds everyone that endurance without fulfillment isn't strength, it's self-sacrifice. What makes the story even more poignant is how public their love has always been. Their reality show, interviews, and constant online presence made fans feel like part of their journey. So when Tiny's words about emotional dissatisfaction began circulating, it felt personal. People had watched them raise kids, survive scandals, and rebuild after setbacks. To see it all unravel reignited debates about whether fame itself dooms relationships or simply magnifies the cracks already there. Even now, as rumors swirl and fans speculate about what went wrong, one thing remains clear. Tiny and T.I are two people who grew up together in the public eye, but may have grown apart emotionally. The demands of fame, power, and personal evolution often pull couples in different directions. What began as youthful passion turned into years of compromise and eventually quiet resentment. For Tiny, finding her voice meant acknowledging that love without fulfillment was no longer enough. In the grand picture of celebrity relationships, theirs stands out because it reflects real human complexity. It's not about villains and victims, it's about two imperfect people navigating fame, ego, and expectations. Tiny's alleged statements about emotional dissatisfaction don't necessarily come from spite. They sound like the raw reflections of a woman who spent years trying to make love work under impossible pressure. And T.I., in his own way, represents the struggle many men face when pride, upbringing, and emotional unawareness collide with a partner's evolving needs. As the dust settles, fans continue to hope they'll find peace, separately or together. Their children remain a central focus, and both have said publicly that family will always come first. Perhaps that's the silver lining. Even amid heartbreak, there's mutual respect for the family they built. Divorce doesn't erase history, and love doesn't always disappear just because a marriage ends. Sometimes it transforms, from partnership into acceptance, from passion to peace. In the end, Tiny's story is one of reclamation. For years, she was defined by her husband's image. Now, she's reclaiming her narrative. Her words about emotional dissatisfaction and womanhood echo far beyond gossip headlines. They speak to anyone who has ever felt unseen in love, anyone who has given everything only to realize that emotional connection cannot be forced. And for T.I., this chapter may serve as a moment of reckoning, an opportunity to reflect on what real intimacy requires beyond fame and fortune. Their saga is a reminder that even the strongest-looking relationships can crumble when communication fades and pride takes the wheel. It's a cautionary tale about how easy it is to lose the emotional foundation that once made love thrive. And while fans may argue over who's right or wrong, the deeper lesson is universal. Satisfaction in love comes from being truly known, not just being together. As the world watches the next phase of Tiny's journey unfold, one thing is certain: she's stepping into a new era on her own terms. Whether that means peace, freedom, or rediscovery, she's already taken the hardest step: choosing herself. And if her words during the divorce are any indication, this isn't just the end of a marriage. It's the rebirth of a woman who's finally done apologizing for wanting more than surface-level love. For T.I., time will tell how he processes this loss. Maybe he'll reflect, maybe he'll respond through music. That's always been his therapy. But for now, the public sees a man who once prided himself on control, facing a reality he can't manage. A woman who loved him enough to leave. And that, more than anything, might be the most humbling lesson of all. In the story of T.I. and Tiny, there are no easy villains, no clean resolutions. Just two people who built a legacy together and outgrew the version of love that once held them together. It's bittersweet, it's human, and it's painfully relatable. And as fans continue to talk, tweet, and debate, both T.I. and Tiny will continue living their truths, separate, yet forever intertwined by history, children, and the lessons they taught each other about love, pride, and emotional fulfillment.